You remember that one time they made Superman bisexual? Yeah, that's right. It was about 2 or so years ago as of the time of this recording. During the DC Comics series featuring Superman's supposed son, John Kent, they decided to very suddenly make him a prominent and very proud member of the LGBT, rocking pride flags, going to parades, the works. What I want to say is that this caused a huge wave of backlash, drama, and controversy and all that nonsense, but well, it kind of didn't. It did make some obligatory YouTube drama channels lose their minds, and maybe 2 or 3 mainstream news platforms gave this subject matter 2 or 3 seconds worth of attention, but other than that, it was very quickly forgotten, just as fast as it was noticed when it was announced. I wanted to make a whole video series about this like I usually do, but in all honesty, I kinda just lost track of it because of the reasons I just said. Kinda just came and went as a result of the way we, as a society, constantly consume information and media in our day and age. So, in this video, let's take a look back at it in the form of a retrospective type thing. What even happened here? As in, from start to finish, what went down? Superman, the Son of Kal-El, is a short-lived comic book series featuring the teenaged offspring of Supes, John Kent. Written by Tom Taylor, the mind behind the Injustice comic book series, and drawn by about 5 different people during the comic's lifespan. This entire thing started off with a decent amount of potential, doing all the typical things that come along with a superhero descendant type scenario. Handling the pressures and responsibilities that come along with taking his father's mantle, trying to maintain a balance between his normal life and his hero life, and etc, etc. It seemed like a relatively straightforward superhero successor business, the first 4 chapters of the comic anyway. Nothing terrible, nothing amazing, just perfectly serviceable and average. But the adjectives serviceable and average do not cut it in terms of sales numbers. The first issue of the series scored up generously about 70,000 copies in sales, and you would think that that's a really big number, but it's actually only in 17th place for the most successful comic of 2021 in July when it was released. That means only for the single month that it released. And this is for the Superman branding we're talking about here. You know, the face of DC Comics? So, 17th place is not very good under those circumstances. I dare say it's actually pretty bad. Unfortunately, the comic book industry as a whole was just in a really bad situation at the time. I mean, heck, it still is right now to this current day. Prices on comics were getting higher, comic consumers were getting lower simply due to the fact that Western comics are niche to begin with. Most comics coming out lately were filled to the lid with self-insert nonsense and not even thinly veiled politics shoved down your throat, and good grief, don't even get me started on how manga is eating Western comics lunch in terms of sales numbers because manga is, well, just better. So, New Superman's numbers are very much below sales expectations to the point of extreme mediocrity after the first few issues. And with that knowledge in mind, it probably will not shock you to find out that in issue number 5, Superman, John Kent specifically, very suddenly comes out as a bisexual man in the form of very suddenly, very out of nowhere, catching feelings for a side character that he's only known for roughly a week canonically. I may have pointed out that that makes little to no sense, but it practically doesn't matter because as soon as you bring up the LGBT, well, that pretty much automatically creates an iron wall of argumentative defense behind it. What I'm trying to say is this: as soon as the LGBT were brought up into the subject matter, the usual politics and jargon that come along with adding in gay stuff into mainstream media commences.
Well, a big announcement today from DC Comics. They revealed the new Superman, who is the son of Clark Kent, is bisexual. Linda Schmidt has more on the groundbreaking comic hero.
If you Google or YouTube search this subject matter, it will seem like this was an entire debacle, what with all these videos and articles and etc. discussing the subject matter, trying to make a big deal out of it. But on the grand scheme of things, it affected basically nothing. And in fact, all it really did was just throw itself out of the frying pan and into the fire. The frying pan in question being the actively declining comic book industry, and the fire being a completely idiotic and pointless online culture war. To sides of argumentative parties were produced as a result of this little debacle. One side is a group of people who vehemently defend this writing decision, making the claim that this is ushering in a new generation of inclusive, open-minded readers alongside this hero. The second side are a group of conservative folks who don't want to see their favorite superhero delve into such pointless progressive nonsense and simply want to see their favorite characters do actual superhero stuff and not disjointed, out-of-place pride stuff. Regardless of which side you take in the matter, it basically doesn't matter, because anyone who is aware of the poor state of the Western comic industry for that time period can clearly see that this is a decision specifically designed to attract some, if any, form of attention to the declining comic line to keep their sales healthy. And yeah, I was trying to be a little bit neutral in the discussion of this video, but let's be honest, that's very obviously what this all is. In attempts to be a little bit fair, this is not the weirdest or most outlandish thing done with the Superman intellectual property. Fun fact, you guys know that Superman fought the KKK once, right? No, really, that happened once. I'm serious. But also, to counteract that attempted fairness, for the record, this is not the first time DC has made a bold move regarding their characters that seems less like they're trying to be inclusive and seems more like they're trying to hardcore pander to the, well, woke crowd. Between I Am Not Starfire, Catwoman Under the Moon, Gotham High, Harley Quinn Breaking Glass, and that one comic where they made Lois Lane Asian for God knows whatever reason, the number of examples is high, and it's pretty easy to assume that this was just some cheap PR stunt as a result of low viewership. Okay, so you know what? Fine. Ignoring all conjecture, whatever, boom. Superman is LGBT now. Cool, whatever. Okay, how does this affect the story in any way? Well, let's briefly detail this comic's offerings and find out now. The story starts off as a simple and fairly fast-paced comic entering a teenage John Kent navigating his hero life. The comic itself is very self-aware that you've seen this all before, which is actually quite refreshing, as the pacing of this comic is practically breakneck in comparison to most others. Some comic pages are actually caked with very clunky dialogue as a result of that pacing, but well, it's mostly tolerable courtesy of the very well-drawn action and very vibrant colors during action scenes. The artwork actually deteriorates as the issues progress, but I won't get into that just yet. To keep it simple, the first few issues are not bad at all. Like I said before, not amazing or groundbreaking, not complete garbage, just perfectly average, adequately serving as a brain-dead page-turner. However, as the series goes on, well, things begin to deteriorate and get rather mediocre, in writing as well as artwork. As the issues progress, the story is constantly leading John Kent into the idea that he should be working on saving the world from real problems. Not supervillains with world domination plans, but instead the climate and corrupt politics and etc. and yada yada yada. And I guess that is true, that superheroes should be helping with stuff like that, but it also makes for really boring comic entertainment. I read comics to run away from reality, not have someone else shove their own personal opinions of reality down my throat. And that's what very quickly happens as soon as you reach issue 3. It really does kind of seem like the writer behind this is kind of just making stuff up as he goes on, because, well, the political grandstanding is just getting worse and worse very quickly. The story tries to make it out like Superman's son John is standing for the truth, willingly getting himself arrested for taking sides with protesters and stuff, but honest to God, it just feels more like he's going through a really childish, rebellious phase instead of actually standing for justice or whatever. Trying really hard to make it out like he's standing up for the little guy to the point to where it's really obnoxious and forced. And the way the comic starts off with actual superhero stuff, seeing him fight actual threats, and by the next issue he's suddenly doing this political nonsense, it kind of feels like the writer was just like, oh wait, superhero stuff isn't working? Hang on, let's get topical. That's the vibe I'm getting here. By the end of issue 3, Superman leaves Earth to do God knows what, and John Kent is the only super person on the planet now, just as he finished showing off that he's a little bit too unstable to be working solo. And then we jump over to issue 5, I'm not even going to discuss issue 4 because it's just drenched in plot armor. John Kent very suddenly catches feelings for this pink-haired J guy. And good grief, is it freaking weird, because, well, this comic has only existed lasted for 5 freaking issues, and John has only known this dude for 3 of those 5 issues, and he's already kissing the dude despite having zero chemistry or romantic buildup with this guy. There was genuinely no tension or buildup between these characters at all before this moment, so it just serves to make the bisexuality even more forced and rushed and empty. So yeah, Soups likes dudes as well as chicks now. Past that, what happens as the issues progress now that John has developed this romantic preference? How does this affect the narrative for this entire series? Well, the answer is nothing. Nothing changes. It's still just standard superhero business. John meets up with other superhero descendants, they do generic savior stuff, the LGBT content that was presented was all just cheap window dressing that does not affect the plot in any way, which is kinda sad considering how much artificial buzz was developed around the subject matter. In terms of the main plot thread, which is a new Superman struggling to fill his father's shoes, the whole he likes males as well as females thing, well, doesn't matter. And honestly, they actually did have the potential to do something interesting about it. What if they made Jay a bad guy? I mean, obviously they will not do that because that's going to trigger the freaking people that they just attracted. Like, oh, you can't make the bisexual person the bad guy because he's inclusive. You know what I mean? Like, there is actually something you could have done that's interesting here, but I mean, since you have to make it political and you have a political side of people now engaging in your work, you can't. Point being, this was stupid and pointless. So, they made Superman bisexual. And 1, it doesn't affect the major narrative. 2, it doesn't change the way anyone acts. 3, it has no relevancy to the story in any way. 4, the relationship John is in with Jay has no form of chemistry whatsoever. And 5, the romance was insanely rushed right from the get-go. So, like I've been saying, I'm gonna go off on a limb and say that this was just force in for sales and PR. And hey, the fact that they made Superman LGBT totally changed the course and made this comic a smash success, right guys? Right? Well, this comic series died in late 2022, with issue number 18 being its final update. It only lasted 13 more issues after that big reveal. That's barely an entire year. Is that the result of the bad comic book industry? Is that the result of people refusing to read because of the fact that they made John Kent LGBT? Or is that just the result of the comic line being doomed to fail anyway, regardless of that sudden reveal? I'll let you decide on that one. So, looking back at Bisexual Superman, how was it? It was bad. It was bad, boring, forced nonsense. Simply put, it was yet another desperate attempt at pandering to an imaginary audience of new hip readers that just does not exist. And 2 years later after this little stunt, what is this comic series now? Well, it's the exact same as all the other forced and pitiful attempts at desperately trying to attract the attention of the woke crowd. Gone and forgotten, like it never even happened to begin with. The way the LGBT and weirdo conservative folk combat each other in media is akin to a very bizarre territorial turf war, where they paint their colors across what they think belongs to them, and they desperately try to take things from one another. All these little news articles and videos and everything try to make it seem as if these LGBT folk really care about this comic series now suddenly, but seeing this entire comic line decline and get cancelled just shows off that it was just an insignificant piece of a way larger, totally pointless online tribe war. And I don't know about you guys, but if I made a comic and the only reason why people cared about what I was doing is because it served as a middle finger to a specific demographic of people, I'd be pretty depressed with myself. And, well, that's what this entire comic line ultimately transformed into. Yet another shallow little flag stand. An insignificant chess piece that was tossed aside in a completely idiotic crusade. That's gonna be the end of this video, boys. This is Blacklight Jack signing out. Thanks for watching. It's time for the Patreon roll call. My $10 supporters are Art Blocked, Candid Monkey, Jack G, Joseph Vincent, Kazu Cool, Klutzy Ninja Kitty, MCM 101, Mace Oratami, Pai Yan, Skyer, Syndrin 7, Spooky, Stormy Knight, and Vincent Lundy. And of course, let's not forget our $5 supporters. They are appreciated just as much as our $10 Patreons. If you'd like to be in the credits of my videos as well and have access to a small library of ad-free, uncensored videos, all you gotta do is support me with $5 on Patreon. Thanks for watching, boys. We'll see you next time.